You can qualify for a short-term rental using income from a property that property is never produced, no leases, no Airbnb bookings. There's a few important rules you have to understand to make sure everything's structured correctly so your loan's not going to get denied in underwriting. Here's everything you'd want to know. You're probably already somewhat familiar with a DSCR ratio loan. This is where the lender only looks at the rental income as opposed to personal income. So we're going to divide that monthly rent figure by the PI/TI payment to come up with that ratio. Ideally looking for at least a 1 DSCR ratio. Now, traditionally, lenders have always used long-term rental data to come up with that DSCR ratio. Nowadays, the Airbnb market and short-term rentals in general have really exploded over the past 5 to 6 years, really since COVID. So lenders have reacted to that and really eased up on the way they underwrite a short-term rental loan. Nowadays, you can actually use the projection of a property that's not even a short-term rental of what it would produce as a fully rented out property to help you qualify for a DSCR loan. Yes, more lenders nowadays are allowing you to use the AirDNA projection instead of the appraisal. Here's where most investors tend to get tripped up. There's a few different ways the lender's going to calculate that DSCR ratio off of that data. Some lenders let you use the full amount, 100% of the AirDNA projection, and some take a little bit of a haircut. They're going to take 80% of that figure to come up with that ratio. Occasionally, a lender might even compare the AirDNA projection to an actual 1007 appraisal, and they want to see it come in roughly about the same. The important bottom line here is every lender calculates this a little bit differently than the next, so make sure before you go into contract, you know exactly how that calculation will look, so you know your deal is going to get approved once you get an offer accepted. Every lender is still going to order the 1007 rent schedule, which is the appraiser's rent survey, but it's really more how they actually weigh that report, if at all, in comparison to the AirDNA, and that's what's really going to dictate how your DSCR ratio will look. The property you're purchasing does not have to already be an Airbnb, does not have to have a track record of such. Again, the underwriter's really underwriting the actual market itself and not your particular property. They want to see more comps, data. They're going to look at the market score of that community according to AirDNA. The more comps, the more data it is, the easier it is to get that loan approved. If you're buying a house in a more rural community, a smaller town, there's probably not going to be a ton of comps and a ton of other vacation rentals in that community. Just going to make it that much harder. The more populated the area is, the more of an actual vacation town it is, the more data, and the easier it is to get approved for a DSCR short-term rental loan. If you're buying a house that's vacant or owner occupied, chances are the property is not already going to be a turnkey short-term rental. So they're going to look at the aggregation of data and the overall market viability to see what that property would perform as before they officially sign off on that loan approval. And this is where most investors tend to get nervous. What happens if the appraisal comes in low? This is why it's really crucial to, as early as possible in the process, ask your lender, ask your broker like myself, how are you going to determine that DSCR ratio? Is it going to be 100% of the AirDNA? Do we even look at the AirDNA? Some might put most of their weight on the actual 1007 rent schedule and make that appraiser use short-term rental comps. Every lender is going to have a different formula. Super important to ask your lender up front to make sure your deal is going to get approved and go through smooth. The AirDNA projection alone is not going to be enough to get you approved. Like any other loan, of course, the lender is still going to look at the credit score, the down payment, and everything tends to be correlated. If you have a high credit score and that property performs really well with the AirDNA projection, you might be eligible for a smaller down payment. Or if the ratio is a little bit weaker and credit's a little bit weaker, you're probably gonna have to put down at least 20 to 25%. Owning a primary residence definitely helps, or having rental management experience can help you qualify for a lower down payment. It's always crucial, and same with owning a short-term rental. If you already have a track record, that lender is just gonna be that much more comfortable lending on that loan, giving better terms, but it's not always needed. Overall, the AirDNA projection tool is awesome. It's great that many lenders are now honoring it. You're gonna have that much less anxiety going in, knowing that you're not gonna be as focused on the appraisal because that portion's really already been underwritten. You still gotta ask your lender, what percent of that income can we use? What's the needed DSCR ratio? Any questions you guys have, again, my name is Austin. I'm a mortgage broker here in Phoenix, Arizona. I currently own and operate a short-term rental. Any questions, drop me a comment.